The Salt of the Earth is a film about the story of Sebastião Salgado, who is my father. He's a photographer who's been witnessing the world, traveling during the last 40 years in places where story was happening. He's been basically places where important historical things were happening for the last 40 years. The story of Sebastião is the story of this witness who was overwhelmed by what he was watching and couldn't bear witnessing this world anymore. And he and Lelia, my mom, they had to invent a way of surviving that, a way of finding hope in this world that they had been witnessing that was so brutal, cynical, and barbarian. And the film tries to show that there is hope in this world, despite everything we get from the news. So this is what we've been trying to do. That's what the film is about. You know, when I was a child, my father would travel to places. I didn't know really about them, but he would travel a long time and he would be here in Paris where we lived very little. So my teachers would always ask me where my father was. And every time I would tell them he was, in Angola during the revolution, in Ethiopia, or in all those places that he used to travel to, I could see in my teacher's eyes, in my friends' parents' eyes, astonishment and also admiration. And I understood very, very early that what he did was really special. And for me, he was kind of, Indiana Jones, but for real. And I was very, very proud of him. And then at some point, I also understood that his photography had a meaning, and actually they had a function that was to trying to raise awareness on, complicated situation, important things that were happening, far away. And so I was very admirative of that, actually. I started shooting when I was 22. Actually, at the time, my girlfriend felt pregnant. We're very much in love with each other. So we decided we had to have the child, my son, our son, and I had to find a job, right? And it was very frightening. At the time I was studying law and economics, but I knew I didn't want to end up behind the desk. And my father's lifestyle was amazing, so I decided I wanted to do something related to that, telling things about the world, visiting the world, and being into the picture world without being a photographer myself. So I started filming documentaries. Luckily, I found my way in that documentary filmmaking. And the first film I did was about landmines, people living in a region full of landmines in Angola. Then I went to Afghanistan on my own, and I did a movie there about landmines as well. And after that, I did a lot of films related with news, trying to get deeper into news-related story. Then I moved on to documentary. I did a film school in London, and when I came back, I started doing bigger documentaries. So I did a 90-minute feature-length documentary for Arte, Grand Format, in Nauru, and I started doing this film. Meanwhile, I started writing for fictions as well. And so my subjects have always been related with things happening in the world that could teach us about ourselves, even though we are in very much different context. But the context of the films I'm trying to do are always contexts where people have to take important decisions for their future, for their survival sometimes, and through the way they react, we can learn things about our own life. I filmed my family, I filmed my grandfather actually in 98. At this time I had no idea I was ever going to do a film about my father's work, and actually to be honest with you, I didn't want to. I thought it was like the worst possible thing I was going to do. And the journey of making this film, for me, it's a huge learning process. How I could deal with my father, with his art, with the fact that his body of work was so important, and also the fact that we had to meet and be so close to each other. I had to deal with a lot of issues that I hadn't dealt with till I was 35, and so it's been really, a real growing up process. And now that I've finished with this film, I feel that I'm an adult for the first time. But yeah, it was really interesting, but it came as a surprise. In 2009, when I was setting up to do the first trip with Sebastião amongst the Zoe tribe in the Brazilian Amazon forest, Wim showed up in our life, and he wanted to do a movie about Sebastião. He didn't really know how, when he was going to do it, but he really had the strong intention and the intuition that something interesting could come out of that. And at the end of our chats, which lasted for a year, we'd meet in Berlin, in Paris, exchange emails, we had a structure, and we had the firm. It was more than intuition. At this point, we're sure we could tell Sebastião's story in 90 minutes. And the story, meant something. And at this point, we decided we had to start shooting Wim scenes where all the scenes where Sebastião is confronting with his memories, when he's watching his photos, through this very nice device that Wim found, a teleprompter that's showing Sebastião's photography. He doesn't see the camera. He's confronted directly with his souvenir of the scene, and suddenly he's projected back into those moments. He starts living them again. So it's very powerful and works really well for the film, Then still, we had to find, each of us had to find his own place in the film. At first it was very easy. During the shooting of the film, Wim was going to film Sebastião while he was confronting himself with his memories. I had been shooting him during all of his trips. And then we were going to Brazil together, where we were going to shoot the end of our film and show what was the positive response Sebastião and Lélia had found about their experience of the world. Of course, during the editing, all the cards were shuffled again. We had to find, a unity to it. We had to shut ourselves in an editing room. I thought we were going to be there for a few months. We ended up being there for a year and a half. But at the end, the result is that we both found a way to be true to our point of views, to what we had to say, to the way we saw Sebastião's work as well. So this is a real success as far as our working relationship is concerned. Okay, so what I would recommend to young filmmakers, whatever type of films you want to do, whether it's documentary, music videos, fictional movie, it's never forget the most important thing, it's the story you're going to tell, and especially the way you're going to tell, the story. Dramaturgy should be your essential tool. Don't forget about dramaturgy.